In a fiery address from Bikaner, Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed the Indian armed forces, saying terror bases in Pakistan were destroyed in just 22 minutes during Operation Sindoor. In fact, he called the mission the new face of justice. PM Modi reaffirmed India's zero-tolerance policy against terrorism. Moreover, he warned Pakistan against using terror as a weapon, asserting that every conflict ends, in fact, in its defeat. PM Modi also vowed to expose Pakistan's actions globally through the all-party delegations that have gone out. Here's more.
अप्रैल को आतंकवादियों ने धर्म पूछकर हमारी बहनों की मांग का सिंदूर उजाड़ दिया था। वो गोलियां पहलगाम में चली थी, लेकिन उन गोलियों से 140 करोड़ देशवासियों का सीना छलनी हुआ था। इसके बाद हर देशवासी ने एकजुट होकर संकल्प लिया था कि आतंकवादियों को मिट्टी में मिला देंगे, उन्हें कल्पना से भी बड़ी सजा देंगे। आज आपके आशीर्वाद से, देश की सेना के शौर्य से हम सब उस प्रण पर खरे उतरे हैं। हमारी सरकार ने तीनों सेनाओं को खुली छूट दे दी थी।
India's global outreach to brief world powers on Operation Sindoor and expose Pakistan's link to terror began on Wednesday, viewers, with 2 of 7 delegations, in fact, headed to Middle East and Southeast Asia, respectively. In Japan, meanwhile, the delegation, including Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, met Japanese Foreign Ministry officials. My colleague Disha Bagchi joins me from the NDTV newsroom for the latest. Disha, if you can hear me, what's the importance of, first of all, this diplomatic outreach by the Prime Minister and the Indian government, and how it will nail the head on Pakistan's double speak on terror and its terror game at large?
Absolutely, there's a very crucial visit, and really it's India's diplomatic push to ensure that the world is aware of and conveys and understands India's strong message when it comes to anti-terrorism and what the message was behind Operation Sindoor, which is exposing, as you mentioned, Pakistan's terror links and ensuring that close Indian allies and the people on the international stage, countries on the international stage, are really aware that this is India's red line when it comes to Pakistan and its actions harboring terrorists and terrorist group over the past couple of decades. And now India is not going to tolerate this anymore and has really is now focused on its anti-terrorism push and its message for zero tolerance against terrorism. In fact, Foreign Minister Jaishankar recently tweeted saying, really congratulating all the delegations who have already begun their visit and congratulating them, telling them that, you know, it's great that they're pushing this message of zero tolerance. And in fact, just to talk about some of these delegations who've already begun this outreach, we have 2 delegations who've already begun interacting with the government officials of UAE and Japan. In fact, Japan being a Quad ally is a crucial ally that India must convey its strong message against terrorism. In fact, Japan said that they support India's fight against terrorism and have even called for punishing of the perpetrators of the horrific Pahalgam attack. In fact, today marks the 1 month of the horrific Pahalgam attack, and making it all the more crucial that these delegations are headed to these various countries. In fact, there are 7 delegations, multi-party delegations headed to 32 countries, and they're also going to be visiting the United Nations Security Council as well as the European Union, significant platforms on the global stage to really ensure that the world knows that India will no longer tolerate Pakistan and its actions harboring terrorism. So
Absolutely.
A very crucial visit.
Absolutely, Disha. Thanks for putting that in perspective. Moving on, but staying with the larger story, 1 month after the horrific Pahalgam massacre in which 26 tourists lost their lives, India's External Affairs Minister Jaishankar has issued a strong rebuke of Pakistan's military leadership. Speaking to Dutch media during his visit to the Netherlands, part of his ongoing tri-nation tour across Europe, Dr. Jaishankar called out Pakistani Army Chief General Asim Munir's extreme religious outlook. In fact, his remarks mark one of the strongest public condemnations yet by a top Indian official. Here's what he said.
26 tourists were murdered in front of their families after ascertaining their fate. And it was done in a way in which it was intended to harm tourism, which is the mainstay of the Kashmir economy, and to create a religious discord. Deliberately, an element of religion was introduced. And to understand that, you've got to also see that on the Pakistani side, you have a Pakistani leadership, especially their army chief, who's very driven by extreme religious outlook. So there is clearly some connect between, the views that were expressed and the behavior that was done.
The Indian government has declared a Pakistani official persona non grata for indulging in activities, quote-unquote, not keeping with his official status in India. Now, the Pakistani official has been asked to leave India within 24 hours. And across the border, a suicide bombing on an army school bus in Pakistan's Balochistan province has killed 5 people. Now, this also includes 3 children. The country has blamed Indian proxies, in fact, for the attack. It's a charge New Delhi strongly denies, calling it another attempt to deflect from Islamabad's internal fallings and fallouts. Days after India's Taliban outreach, China huddles with Pakistan and Afghanistan. In fact, days after External Affairs Minister Jaishankar spoke with the Taliban's acting foreign minister Amir Khan Muttaqi, the first ministerial level outreach by India to Afghanistan's Taliban administration. In fact, China has moved swiftly to organize a meeting between Islamabad and Kabul. Meanwhile, 2 Israeli embassy staffers have been shot in Washington, D.C. It's a breaking story that my colleague Vashal Vivek has been vehemently covering. Vashal, if you can hear me, what is the latest on this story? What are you picking up?
Back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents. After the shooting, the suspect then entered the museum and was detained by event security. Once in handcuffs, the suspect identified where he discarded the weapon, and that weapon has been recovered, and he implied that he committed the offense. The suspect chanted, "Free, free Palestine," while in custody. The suspect has been tentatively identified as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago, Illinois.
Well, my colleague Vashal joins me for more on this story. Vashal, we heard the police chief there. And also in the latest, the Israeli establishment has released the photographs, in fact, of the victims. Can you tell us more about it and where exactly, how much have the investigations, in fact, progressed in the matter?
Well, these are still early hours of the investigation. It will take some time before the authorities zero in on the main cause, because the perpetrator, Elias Rodriguez, who belongs to Chicago, the motive behind the killings have still not been identified. The exact motive, although when he was arrested, he was found to be screaming "Free, free Palestine," and also the fact that he did this for Gaza, quote unquote. But the exact cause of the incident, that will take some time to unravel, and the other investigations are also going on. Many agencies are scrambling to find the exact cause of the incident, and so far they have only zeroed in on one person. There's only one suspect so far, and he killed both the young people who were supposed to be getting engaged soon, next week to be precise, and that's when they were killed by this person. And this was a congregation of American Jewish people, and there were at least 2 to 3 dozen people from the embassy, is what the local media in the US is saying, but the ambassador from Israel was not there. There are many questions left to be answered. The first one is that how did this person manage to find that exact location, and how did such a high security incident get breached so easily? So that is one of the questions that will need to be answered by the authorities in the coming weeks.
So thank you so much for getting us the latest there, Vashal. And of course, we'll keep on following this story. Meanwhile, back home in Israel, PM Benjamin Netanyahu has dismissed speculation of, in fact, a rift with US President Donald Trump. Now, this comes following the latter's Gulf tour that excluded Israel. Netanyahu has said that Trump reaffirmed his commitment to Israel in recent conversations despite tensions over the Gaza conflict. In Canada, Prime Minister Mark Carney has said that high-level talks are taking place with the US about joining its proposed Golden Dome missile defense system aimed at countering futuristic threats. My colleague Mahas Siddiqui gets the latest from Ground Zero.
What could mark a significant shift in Canada's policy towards defense cooperation with the United States, President Trump has said that Canada wants to join the Golden Dome missile defense program. This program will cost $175 billion and will be a multi-purpose, multi-layered missile shield, which is expected to be, as per United States, better than what is seen in Israel and called the Iron Dome. This can tackle intercontinental, ballistic and short-range missiles. Ottawa has confirmed that there is conversation underway for Canada to join the Golden Dome. However, it's added a caveat, saying that it's part of the unresolved issues between the two sides as they negotiate an economic and security agreement. What Canada's role is going to be like, what its contribution in terms of the money to the $175 billion is going to be, are all unclear. So far, Canada is a participant in NORAD, wherein it tracks the North American skies and feeds the data into the US missile defense systems. However, it isn't in a decision-making capacity wherein it can respond or react to a missile threat. Speculation this time is that if Canada joins the Golden Dome, it will be a step further than what is seen under NORAD.
Finance leaders from the G7 downplayed trade disputes at their summit in Canada, aimed in fact to present a united front on issues like the Ukraine support and economic transparency. The meeting avoided a repeat of the 2018 G6+1 split, despite underlying tensions over US tariff policies. Shifting focus to West Asia again, where Israel has said it has intercepted a missile launched from Yemen early Thursday, blaming Houthi militants for the attack. Now, the strike, which triggered alarms across central Israel, is the latest, in fact, in a series of missile launches linked to solidarity efforts with Gaza. The Houthis, meanwhile, have not claimed responsibility for this incident like many others earlier. A US judge has ruled that detained Columbia student Mahmoud Khalil must be allowed to meet with his wife before a key immigration hearing. Now, Khalil, held over pro-Palestinian protests, is challenging his deportation saying his rights under the First Amendment are in fact being violated by the Trump admin. Dozens were injured during a pension protest outside Argentina's Congress as security forces clashed with elderly demonstrators demanding higher payouts. Now, the protest coincided with lawmakers, in fact, failing to reach quorum on key pension bills. Meanwhile, President Javier Milei's austerity drive has sparked weekly protests amid persistent inflation and rising poverty. News from North Korea now, where Kim Jong-un has condemned the failed launch of a 5,000-ton warship as a criminal act, in fact calling it a disgrace to national dignity. Now, the incident occurred during a launch event he personally attended, with state media blaming carelessness and technical failure. However, good news, no casualties were reported during this failed launch in North Korea. And planning a trip to Georgia just got easier for Indian passport holders. Why so? Well, the country has relaxed its visa rules. Indians with valid American and British or even Schengen or Japanese visas can now enter Georgia without needing a separate visa. The good news does not stop here. Other benefits from a simplified application process requiring documents like bank statements, Aadhaar, and proof of employment. Georgian officials advise using official portals to avoid fraud. Now, the move aims to boost tourism and strengthen ties between the two nations.